Is your pillow, is your cushion gone down a little bit?
Tuck me in.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon at Savageries, and today I'm once again joined by the lovely Ollie from the channel
Book Drawer.
And he has been rifling through my shelves in the other room, and we're going to go through some of the books he's picked, which is in a kind of unofficial, random, every so often series called Have a Nosey Through My Bookshelves. So, Ollie, you did. It took a really long time. So, what is your first choice? This is Eileen.
This is
by
Eileen.
Tessa Moshfegh.
Yes. I really massively enjoyed this one, and I know that you watched it, but then when
I watched it.
Read it, but when you watched my LGBT A to Z, you said, "Oh, I
Which
forgot
I linked
about
down
her."
below. Well plugged.
You kind of said, "Oh, I forgot about her," and I was like, "How could you forget about this book?"
Well, no, it's not that. It's because I couldn't work out whether it was like it's not. She's not 100% LGBT, is she? There's a little
No,
bit.
yeah.
This one, I feel like I want to hold it now. Stop
Okay.
touching my book. I'm joking. I really enjoyed, but I thought that at the end it lost its way.
Definitely. No, I totally agree with that. And it sets it up on the back cover completely differently to what actually happens.
Yeah.
And you do feel a little bit cheated because of that.
I wasn't for that much. I agreed with a lot of people compare this to Patricia Highsmith, and I can see the comparisons because it's basically about a woman called Eileen. She meets a woman called Rebecca, and then things sort of spiral out of control really because of Rebecca. Don't they always? I also like the fact it's set partially in a prison, but you've got Eileen's background and all the awful stuff that happens to her and why she is this. She's quite weird, isn't she? And she's always talking about how like it's the people with dirty fingers that are the most interesting, like dirty fingernails, and people who keep them clean
And
have
wanting
something to hide.
Have dirty stains or...
Oh yeah,
yeah.
she's
Just into her poop.
She's into all her smells and her sensations.
But that's what I loved.
Oh no, I don't.
Is that really wrong?
Says a lot about Ollie.
I was like,
He's
wow,
been
this
sniffing me all day. This I love because this is the American edition. It's a fascinating character study.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you love about it?
I think the character study element heaps more, just because you really felt like you were peering into a side of a woman's life that you would never normally have access to,
Yeah.
and it was just something kind of, again, like just gritty and dirty and kind of revealing underneath the veneer.
Just want to read more of her work. She's really interesting. I got to interview and she's a really interesting author as well, just to hang out with.
Yeah, because I've watched her explain some of the book as well, and how she seems like a really...
It's interesting how she wrote it, isn't it? Because she wrote it on purpose to sell copies.
Yeah.
She changed her writing style
Yeah.
so that she would write something that was commercial.
But she said, "I'm a serious
Yeah.
writer. I want to," and she was playing the game, and it totally worked for her, which I kind of like.
Well, it has
admire
those
as
two
well.
levels because it is a fascinating psychological study, but at the same time it's really well written. I just think it loses its way at the end. I think it kind of doesn't quite know what to do with itself. I don't know, I just felt like it sort of ran away with itself at the end. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
No, but because with the ending though, it was still dramatic and kind of unexpected that it would go into that direction as well. Is it because she didn't give you a clean ending necessarily?
No, I didn't mind that. I think for me, I kind of almost wanted there not to be the big thing at the end.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a bit more, because that's what I was expecting. I can't say anymore because I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, that's the other problem with this book is
Yeah.
that when you're talking to it with friends and stuff, you're like, "Oh, you really have to read it," but I can't tell you why.
But that can work really well with a book, I think. A lot more campaign should be done that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's book one.
The Rorschach's text. This is the one which I totally forgot existed, and when I saw this on your shelves, I was like, "Oh yes, that was a brilliant,
It's really good.
brilliant read."
It's
yeah.
brilliant. And it's...
And one from Manchester, the writer.
Yeah, that's true. Why did you like it?
I loved it for the fantasy mainly, but then also the reality.
Did I say, this is a book, if you've read Ready Player One, you'll love this book because you go on a proper adventure with characters. I want to see if I can find the shark that terrified me. Oh, it's gone. I went too fast. I really enjoyed this.
I loved the map of the ship as well.
Yes.
Within it, and the whole structure behind that. And
But it's a really good book because it's a book that's got a big mystery at its heart. Because he wakes up and knows something's different, but he can't quite remember anything, and that's the way you go from. And he's left clues as to what he needs to do, and to unlock something else. That's how I remember it.
And just the actual elements of chase in it as well.
Yeah.
Like when running away from these kind of elusive shadows and stuff. It does just make you on edge the whole way through with him.
If you bend that spine, Sunshine, we'll be in big... Ooh.
But this is what I was saying, like, I murder my books. I love them too much.
I'm going to mention something that I can't believe I'm about to mention. The Da Vinci Code, right?
Oh wow.
That's where
Wasn't
I'm going.
expecting that.
It's not, I'm not comparing this. This is so much better written than, so much more well written than the Da Vinci Code.
Wow.
But the Da Vinci Code got me to take part in a chase and take part in breaking down clues and finding the answer and all stuff. It made me feel really clever. This, in a less patronising way and actually making my brain really work, made me feel clever. I felt like I was part of the gang.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of books where you feel like you're part of the gang.
I think also partly because it's set in Manchester as well, I felt like I knew the places that, and it felt almost like you become that person and you're exploring those streets and you are in the same level of danger and you're going on that adventure because it is happening in this world. You
know, people say that, you know, like one of the best things about a book is that you completely escape on your sofa or in bed or wherever. This is one of those books where you completely and utterly escape. And I wasn't sure I was going to love it, and I absolutely loved it. Book number 3.
Book number 3.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Now, Ollie comes on my channel and I have to say the word cock.
Wow. Brave. But it's also because it's Sarah Lucas artwork. I don't feel it.
It is, yeah.
It's a Sarah Lucas artwork, people.
That's just what I was thinking when you held it up. I was like, wow, that's Sarah Lucas artwork, right?
So I was like, what's she doing on this cover? And how does it relate to this? And then I started reading the back, and my mouth fell open a little bit.
Well, basically, the story is about a man who grows a vagina. Oh, thanks for bringing this on the channel. Everyone's going to be deserting.
A man who grows a vagina
behind his knee.
Yeah.
And the doctor completely and utterly falls in love with it because apparently it's the perfect vagina. And then it's a woman who grows...
She grows the penis, yeah, and she rapes her husband.
There we go, that's it. But they're not one book, so they're 2 novellas within the book.
But why would someone put a story like that together? And is there something more than just the weirdness
gender.
of it? Is it about gender? Gender roles as
yeah,
well?
It's about the flip, because obviously you've got a woman growing
and that's
male genitalia and a man growing female genitalia, and it's the power of those 2 bits of your body.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, do you know what as well? I'm going to say something. I'm just going for it. I've decided I need to go for it a bit more often. It's when Will Self was really good.
Oh, okay. Well.
And I don't think he is anymore.
Oh, wow.
I think he's lost himself to himself. Will Self has lost himself to himself. Dorian, I think, is brilliant. And it's interesting because when he did Dorian, when he rewrote the story of Dorian Gray, he really researched his books. I'm not quite sure how he did this. I don't think he grew a vagina behind his knee. But he did go gay for a while while he was writing Dorian because he wanted to experience what it was like to be a gay man.
Did he?
Yeah. I've heard a few married men who said that in my time.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting book, Dorian Gray, isn't it? Because it is a total gay story, but actually, if you break it down properly, it's not. It's about being in love with yourself.
Yeah, and mortality.
And that. And a bit
that
of
big
that.
one, yeah.
That bit that I've not thought about. And it's also about painting. No, he had this phase where he was writing really interesting books about gender and sexuality and the fluidity of it all. And I really liked that. And then I think in the last few years he's just got a bit up his own bottom. But yeah, but I would really recommend this. I think what he was trying to do is write something along the lines of metamorphosis, and actually instead talks about gender.
This does sound like something that I would actually enjoy.
Yeah.
Getting
Well, you're not
stuck
having
into
a
it.
copy.
The bell jar.
Oh, right, okay. So I shouldn't do that noise when it's off my own shelves. I've kind of kept this because I want people to see that I've read it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but also because
bad,
I love that cover so much.
Why? Nothing about this would make me want to read it.
Have you read it?
Yeah.
Well, then you probably won't want to read it again.
No, but but in terms of if I was to not know what the bell jar's about, I don't see a relationship from the cover to the narrative. Because I think I read this when I was in college. Everyone was kind of reading it, and you were kind of finding yourself and everything else. But also because I was doing A-level psychology, and people kind of recommended it to give you a better sense of what depression was about. And what I liked about this one was that it was before the language of depression was described.
But also, I feel like depression has almost become an industry now. This is going to sound really awful, I don't mean it like this, but I think there are lots of people who haven't had depression who say they've had depression when it isn't depression.
When they felt just sad and they've wallowed a bit, but then there's something medically different with someone
if you've had
who
depression,
has that sustained...
you know you've had depression.
Yeah.
And I also think there are people that are making a lot of money out of having been depressed, which I don't know how I feel about either.
But I guess that's because it's something easily identifiable and universal, but people elevate it.
Tragic life stories, all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. I hate all of that because I kind of think, well, you're actually making money out of what you went through, and I don't know how I feel about that, unless it's a benefit. So there's a really good book by Kathy Rensenbrick called The Last Act of Love, and that's about her brother being hit by a car and ending up in a coma, and then he becomes at a point where his brain doesn't function properly, but he's still alive, and it talks about that, and then his death, and how they actually fought for his death. That book, I felt like I came away and I learned something, and it was a dreadfully sad story, but it wasn't a tragic life story. It was this is what I've been through, this might help you because it's about my grief and what I've been through. I don't know how I've got onto this subject when we were talking about murder, but there are other books out there that I just think are cashing in on it.
Well, this was before any of that could have even happened.
And I think it's a really fascinating book, and I think it probably gives quite a lot of insight into Sylvia Plath as a writer, both in her writing style and as a person. But I have mainly kept it for the fact that there are people to say about it, and also because I love that edition, despite the fact that you don't. I don't know if I'd recommend it to loads of people, because loads of people say teenage girls should read it. I don't know how true I feel that is.
I think lots of people should read it just to build a sense of empathy for other people in terms of what they're going through. Well, especially when people kind of minimise things like depression or anxiety, and I think this is actually a good book because it comes from the framework of someone who doesn't understand their illness, doesn't have a sense of it, and it actually takes them on that journey and takes them to a place where they actually have a greater sense and coping mechanisms for that. And there is a light as well at the end of it as well, which is a good positive thing. But I think just purely on a kind of educational, easy, accessible way of understanding that and building that level of understanding, I thought it was really good. Well, this has been very therapeutic.
It's been something. Right, what's the next book, Ollie? Is it the last one already?
It is the last one already.
And this is the second time this is featured on this series of videos, which is really interesting.
I'm sorry,
no, it doesn't matter. I think that's really interesting because it means it's what lots of people talk about. I also want to make it do that.
I just really enjoyed the style this was written in, and the language and the imagery that was put throughout it. The description of like the symbols within like rivers and the water in our eyes, and all of that was kind of magical in its own way. And I hated the movie.
But the movie made me read it because.
And
I'll link all the videos in this series down below. But the one with me and Polly, who I've known since I was 4. We went and saw it together, and we started our own mini book group because nobody else wanted to go, so it was just a book group of 2. So we went and saw the film, but we read the book first, and I thought it was amazing. And what I thought was particularly amazing about it was, I think, and Polly agreed with me, so this is not me saying it as a man, but he gets into the mind of a woman fantastically.
Well, I wouldn't know either, but yeah, I felt that.
Like, you know, when there are some books where you sort of feel like you're taking part, but you're not really in it. This is a book you're completely in the whole way through, and I love. It's also a really good story, and I think sometimes that gets forgotten. People go on about the prose and the language, which is fantastic in this, like you said, but also at its heart, it's just a really, really, really good story.
Definitely, yeah, and
it's epic. I think it captures that period in history. The only thing that I would kind of say, which is going to sound really odd, and this is where I get into a bit of a tricky one about the whole own voices discussion, because I would love to read a book by a geisha about being a geisha, but sometimes I think when those stories can't be told or can't be translated, then it is down to people to write those stories and escape into the minds of those people.
You would hope that he's done some research and possibly talked to a couple of people. That whole claiming voice thing is really problematic.
It is, but it's a conversation that sometimes I think people go too hard on.
Yeah, true.
So for example, like Rose Tremaine, she will often write about stories about people who are on the periphery of society, and they tend to be either immigrants or LGBT or, you know, all of that. And I think sometimes authors get attacked for stealing other people's stories, but the whole point is they're just making up stories, and they're trying to talk about the world through those people's eyes so that we all learn. And I think we need to be a little bit more generous with that.
Definitely, and I mean, people make up stories about generic characters anyway.
Crime novelists don't want to go and be murderers, but They still write. You know what I mean? The whole point of writing a story is that you
And they give
go
it a
off
go.
and write somewhere else.
Yeah.
If they give murder a go. Done a little bit of murder.
Had a little experiment.
Yeah, had a
flirtation with it.
I don't want to murder anyone. But anyway, going back to this book,
Yeah.
there's some murderous intent in this book.
There is.
I also love the fact there's a brilliant villain.
And yeah, but you totally do want
But a villain that you
do
love.
Really?
Oh my god, I loved it.
Fiction crush level.
Oh, I don't believe in fiction crushes, but I loved reading how dark and villainous one character was and why she was the way she was. Because I love that. I love it if you get a villain in a book, but you find out the crux of why they're a villain.
Yeah, definitely the layers of the villainy.
Layers of villainy. Oh, that would be like a good Mills and Boon, that, wouldn't it? Right, old bodice ripper. So that's my thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I concur.
Thanks for bringing those on, Ollie. Thanks for bringing my books onto my channel.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
We will have a video on Ollie's channel where we will be doing what, Ollie?
We're going to do some craftivism, which is in relation to Liverpool Pride, where I'm encouraging people to explore quotes from queer fiction and decorate them and embrace them and just learn a bit about queer fiction, really.
Get ready for mine, it's going to be a treat.
It will be a treat. It's very nervous about creating art.
I'm not nervous, I just can't do it. It's just going to be smiley faces and a few
do
buttons stuck on a screen with some glitter thrown over it.
That's exactly what we're doing. You can come and take part on the 30th, Saturday 30th of July.
If you're in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Can't take part anywhere else.
No.
Yet.
Yet.
On that note, we'll be over on Ollie's channel, or I'll see you in my next video. Bye.
Bye.
That's years ago. That's like a decade. You've got a book erection.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just too
so
excited
aroused
to be
by
here.
all these shelves. Don't read the magic, Ollie. Oh, there's a hair in it. Sorry, Ollie. Don't dust enough. That's the second time this happened. When Lauren was on it, she was like, "Look at the dust on that."
Are you ready?
Almost. I don't mind if
It's like
you're
in
ready.
your-
It's whether I'm ready.
Oh, okay.